You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Teresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to introduce you to the guest we have on the Becoming More Me show today, because today I have Rena Romano here with me. And known for her unique perspective and for being an expert by experience, she's an author, a speaker, and positivity pro. She's a veteran of the TEDx stage and was also a featured guest on the OPRAH WINFREY Show, where she shared her story and powerful lessons that helped her persevere during and after sexual abuse. Her techniques for personal development are going to help you thrive in business, love, and life. Rena believes there's always an upside to everything life gives us, and that it's all about reframing self-limiting beliefs. I definitely agree there. Anyone who's experienced trauma of any kind, and I would have to say that's all of us in some degree, is going to benefit from the unique perspective and stories she'll be sharing with us today. I'm so happy you're here, Rena. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's just an honor to be with you and your audience. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. So for those who haven't seen your TED Talk or other amazing interviews that you've done, can you just fill us in a bit on the journey that brought you both to that stage and now today to the Becoming More Me show to share your story?
Oh my goodness, let me tell you, I am a survivor of incest and sexual assault as a young adult. And my journey was, and my healing journey was watching the Oprah Winfrey Show and, seeing her go through the trauma that she's been through and how successful she is. And I realized that I needed to call for help and get the counseling for all the years of the sexual abuse that I went through. And so, yes, Oprah is my hero and my mentor.
Love her too.
Yeah. So, and we can talk more about that if you like. I'm an open book. We can talk about whatever you want.
Absolutely.
But something was pushing me, Teresa, to go on this path. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how it was going to evolve. But after I got the counseling, I knew that I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing now.
And how long ago was that you knew you needed to call for help?
That was 32 years ago.
Great.
I am 66 years young. And
I would never guess that. If you're listening to the audio, you can't see how beautiful and vibrant Rena is, but I would never guess that you're 66.
Thank you. Well, thank goodness for moisturizer and Zoom filters. But anyway, yeah. So watching Oprah, and I'm like, my secret almost killed me. And she always would do calls to her show. If you've gone through this situation or that situation, she wanted to talk to real people, everyday people that had a story. And I sent my email in explaining my story, and I was called, sat next to her. And then I did a TEDx talk. It's called Healing from Sexual Abuse Can Start with One Word. But Teresa, I have to tell you, I knew for 2 years before I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show that I was going to be on her show. We can manifest, and we know we have to listen to our intuition.
Yes.
And my friends and family would say, woohoo, Rena, you're crazy. Yeah, right. You're going to be on Oprah. I just knew it. I don't know how I knew it.
There's a science to manifestation, and we're engineered to do it in our, our energy portals, our chakras, and once we tune into that, like, the sky's the limit.
I told her I'm going to be on Oprah. I knew it. I didn't know how or when. They called me and I shared my secret with the world. And yeah, it was the scariest thing I've ever done, but then it's led me on this path that I'm now on. So becoming more me, becoming more you.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Right? That's awesome. So how did that end up manifesting? How did you end up getting the call to be on the show? And what did that all look like?
Well, you know that a lot of people talk about the law of attraction. but you can't spell attraction without action.
Mhm.
Okay.
True.
So yeah, I can manifest Mercedes Benz, and I can sit on the couch and eating bonbons and thinking I want a Mercedes Benz, but you got to put it in action if you want things to come true.
Right.
So, like I said, I just knew my intuition. It was the path I was supposed to take. My guides were pushing me that way. I just knew I was going to be on Oprah. And like I said, I sent in an email to one of her requests. If you are a child, um, if you are a survivor of child sexual abuse, send us your story. And sure enough, I did. And out of hundreds, maybe thousands, I was picked. And they called me.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you also had another person that I love, Jack Canfield. I know you have a story about having manifested something, a meeting or something with him as well. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. With Jack Canfield. Well, even after I was on Oprah, oh, I have to tell your audience, I was um, on a ship when I got the email from Oprah's producers. We do want you on the show. And I was on my way to Canada on a cruise ship. And so I'm like,
How
they
soon
want
did they want
me
you on the show?
in 4 days
Oh, goodness.
off the ship. And so we got on the ship in Boston on Saturday. I got the email on Sunday. And I said, well, I'm on the ship. And they said, well, when's your next port of call? I said, it's Tuesday. And they emailed back and said, well, we will have a plane ticket for you from Canada to Chicago. And I had to get permission from the captain to leave the ship. I had to show them. They sent me an email letter from Harpo Studios because you can't just leave a ship.
Right.
The captain has to account for everybody. So I was taken off the ship, flown to Chicago, picked up in a limo, and the rest is history. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But even after being on Oprah, Teresa, talking about Jack Canfield, after being on Oprah, I'm like, what did I just do? I felt so vulnerable, so scared after sharing my years of incest and sexual assault
Yeah.
as a young adult. And I felt I was just raw. I felt my emotions were raw, and I became very depressed again. And I went and got more therapy. I went and sought more help and worked through some stuff. And I finally listened to my intuition. This is what you're supposed to be doing, Rena. But still not believing in myself, Teresa.
Yeah.
I started going to the National Speakers Association, the local chapter. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree, a college degree. I'm not a medical licensed therapist. Who's going to listen to me? Well, there were some wonderful women in the National Speakers Association. They said, oh, you have to read this book by Jack Canfield, and it's called The Success Principles.
That's a good one.
And I'm thinking, well, what does he know about sexual abuse? How can he help me? And that was my negative thinking, that even though somebody hadn't gone through what I've gone through, they can't help me, because I was blocked off from allowing the continuing healing to go.
Yeah.
And they said, you got to buy the book. So I went home that day and I'm like, what do I got to lose? I'll buy his book, The Success Principles. But I was still having worthiness issues,
Yeah.
self-esteem issues. And the book came from Amazon. And I opened the package and I pulled out this huge book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And I'm like, I don't have time. This thing was this thick, 4 inches thick, I think. And I don't have time to read this. It can't help me anyway. That negative thinking. Of course, it wasn't going to help me if I kept thinking like that, right?
Right.
But so I started flipping through the book. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, I need the receipt for my expenses to pay for this book. And I look in the package, there's no receipt. I'm thinking, oh gosh, I got to email Amazon to get a copy of the receipt. So I'm flipping through the book, and all of a sudden there's this folded piece of paper in between two pages. And I pull it out, and it's the copy of the receipt. And oh, where the receipt was, I look on the left side of the page, and it says, you have to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself to accomplish what you want. And I went on to read, you don't need a college degree to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at that. And then on the next side of the page, it says, it's none of your business what people think of you. And it was a quote by Serena Williams. And I'm like, oh my God. I slammed the book closed. And I'm like, Jack Canfield saved me. And I didn't even have to read his book. It was principle number 5, believe in yourself. And from that day, Teresa, I have to tell you that I'm going to tell Jack Canfield this story because I was jumping up around my office. Oh, God, believe in yourself. That's all I have to do. I have to believe because nobody else is going to believe in me unless I believe in me.
Right.
And I said, someday I'm going to tell Jack Canfield this story.
And for anybody who doesn't know who Jack Canfield is, he likes to hear stories. He's the co-author of the entire Chicken Soup for the Soul series and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm sure your story was a delight to him.
Absolutely. Well, I did get to tell him in person.
Oh.
I said, someday I'm going to tell Mr. Jack Canfield the story, I didn't even have to read his book, how it helped me manifest what I wanted, that I didn't have to have a college degree because I went on and read, Bill Gates, several others.
Oh, so many people.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, all of them. They didn't have college degrees. But I saw on Facebook that Jack Canfield was coming to Miami like 6 months later, and I live in Tampa. It's a 5-hour drive. I said, I'm going. I bought the VIP ticket, and that means you get to have lunch in the same room with Jack.
Yeah.
So I'm standing in the lunch buffet, and I feel this big presence come up from behind me. I'm standing there with my plate to get my food, and something's looming over me, and I turn around. It's Jack Canfield. He's standing right behind me in the lunch buffet line.
Just feel that energy.
Oh my gosh. He said, yeah, it's me. I'm like, you're not going to believe it. I told him about the receipt, the missing receipt, and how I didn't believe in myself and how I didn't think his book could help me because he doesn't know anything about child sexual abuse. And I opened the page where the receipt was, and it says, you believe in yourself and it's none of your business. You don't have to have a college degree. I'm so excited. I still get goosebumps now. And that's a cool story, Rena. I said, I know. I didn't even have to read the whole book and it helped me.
That's amazing. That's so
and
cool.
then I got a 30-minute mentoring call with him after sharing that story with him. So I manifested it, but I made it happen.
Well, yeah, you had to take the action. If you hadn't gone to Tampa, bought the ticket, done the thing, you couldn't have made it to that next part of the manifestation.
If I hadn't sent the email to Oprah, I wouldn't have been on the show. If I hadn't bought the ticket to see Jack Canfield in person, I wouldn't have met him.
Sure.
If I hadn't bought
to say that there aren't ways you could have manifested it in other ways, but I think you definitely took some nice shortcuts that made it a lot more tangible and easy for yourself than trying to do it all with thought.
Yeah. Thoughts do create our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And had I kept thinking he can't help me, well, I wasn't allowing him to help me.
Right. And, you have your background, I mean, with the sexual abuse and everything else. And, I believe you were suicidal at some point also, correct?
Absolutely.
How did you transition from the negative feelings or the doubt and everything else to feelings of authentic and genuine happiness?
Watching other people. You know that saying, surround yourself with successful people in the books you read. And it's true. And I was watching Oprah on her show. I think I watched every episode, for the 25 years that she was on. I started watching Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield. I watched The Law of Attraction. I started studying the 12 laws of the universe. I started studying everything I needed to change and reframe my mindset. And I was suicidal and I called for help. I called a crisis line and I said, I don't want to die, but I don't know how to live with this pain and the shame of the crimes committed against me.
Right.
I need help. And the man on the phone, he was listening and he was beautiful and he was wonderful. And I never met him, but he was my angel and my hero. And he says, I want to congratulate you, Rena. You're so brave. And, you know, I love your courage for calling and getting help. And he called me brave. And for a moment, I felt very proud of myself. And I had never felt proud of myself before. And he says, you've come to the right place. We can help you. And so with that thought, he helped me reframe my negative thinking that if I keep pursuing a positive path, I can change what happened to me.
Yeah.
I can do it. I didn't know that I had the power. If you've ever watched the Wizard of Oz, the good witch Glinda says, you've always had the power, my dear.
Right.
And I didn't know I always had the power to change it. And Teresa, one day in group therapy, one of the other survivors, I was playing the victim mode, crying all the time. I wasn't taking positive steps. And she said, Rena, when are you going to stop playing the victim and start taking responsibility for your life? You can't change what happened to you as a child, but you can change your life now as an adult. Boy, did that snap me into reality.
Yeah. Seems so simple, and yet it can make such an impact to just think about things in a new way like that.
I needed to hear that. I was so mad at her. So mad at her, Teresa, for talking to me like that. It's like, I am a victim. I didn't do it. I didn't commit these horrific crimes. But she made me realize that I have the power to change it. And that's why I took the step to get
But
counseling.
sometimes we can get angry when we know we have the power, because then we actually have to do something about it.
Yes.
Instead of just telling the story and repeating the behaviors that we're already familiar and comfortable with, and we've got our neural pathways and everything else kind of conditioned to that way of living. And now it's like, oh, you mean to tell me like it could have been different all along?
And I got to do the work now.
Yeah. So how have you learned to let go of like the shame, the expectations, everything else after the abuse and the assault and the trauma, so that you can shift to that happiness and get out of victim mode?
Well, I have to tell you, it's another Oprah moment. She was doing
What would we do without Oprah?
I know, exactly. Some people love her, some people don't like her.
Oh, I
I love
cried
her.
when her show ended. I was like, oh, I loved
I
it.
know. And I got to tell her, you saved my life. And but it was Dr. Brene Brown.
Love me
I
some
call her the
Renee.
godmother of shame.
Oh yeah. Vulnerability, shame, all that good stuff.
Exactly. But I was watching Super Soul Sunday and I was still carrying the shame and low self-esteem and worthiness issues because of the crimes committed against me. I hadn't let go of the shame. Forgave. I forgave myself for the choices I made in the moment because I did the best I could with what I had.
Yeah.
But they were talking about shame, and Dr. Brene said, shame is lethal. Shame is deadly. And honestly, Teresa, I was thinking suicide again, having suicidal ideology. I have a hard time with that word. Thoughts again. Not that I wanted to commit suicide, but it's like, how can I stop this? And she says, shame is deadly. Shame is lethal. And I jumped up and I was screaming and crying. I said, I am tired of being ashamed of crimes I did not commit. And something snapped in my head that I have nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't commit the crimes.
Yeah.
People need to hear my story because I see when I share my story how it is helping other survivors heal.
Yeah. And we have to go through the anger. I think so many women, especially, we have this like pact that we're never going to get angry or we're going to hold it in or we don't want to be like that angry person in our life, whether it was a parent or whatever else. So we're just going to be like cool and chill and hold it all in. And it's part of the emotional scale. And from going in that victim powerless to trying to be more empowered and joyful, you have to pass through anger and voice it. So that was
Well,
amazing for
going
you.
through trauma, it's you have to go through all those levels of emotions just as you do with grief, and anger is one of them. I like to say anger is a catalyst to change,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
but anger can also be an anchor to hold you into victimhood. It can be an anchor that holds you into self-sabotaging um, modes. So it can be a catalyst for change, but it can also be an anchor that holds you stuck. So anger is good, but move past it.
Yeah. You have to get to the empowering side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're all about becoming more me here, obviously, on this show. What are some of your favorite ways to conquer and reframe those self-limiting beliefs so that you can really manifest the life you want and become more of that person you're meant to be in this world?
First, excuse me, if you are a survivor of any trauma, we have all gone through trauma, grief, domestic violence, sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, a loss of a job, a loss of a loved one. We all need to talk to someone. We all need therapy. I dealt with PTSD.
Yeah.
I dealt with worthiness issues. I went through 2.5 years of talk therapy, and Teresa, I thought I was one and done. I've had therapy. I've been shrunk. I've kept in touch with my shrink over the years. I said, "This is my shrink. He shrunk me." It's because I can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought I was one and done and I was healed and I could move on, but I know that I kept moving forward, but I still dealt with anger, shame, self-esteem, worthiness. So continuing education, Jack Canfield, even though he's not a survivor of sexual abuse, his 64 principles, there was some wonderful messages in there. And the law of attraction is about, so I do work with the law of attraction. I read books. Other things that I've done when I'm feeling stuck or I'm slipping back into victim mode and not being the best version of myself, I've used tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm a master practitioner. So
Are you really?
yes,
Wonderful.
that's
I
my main
love it.
role.
Yes, and I've even gone through level 1 and 2. I'm not sure if I want to do the master training or anything, but good for you. I absolutely believe in it.
Yeah. Changed
Um,
my life.
yes, it changed my life, and so I know how to use it for myself. I've also done hypnosis.
I combine both of them.
Do you? Wonderful, wonderful. Good
Yeah,
for you.
I find those to be very, very powerful tools to, get into the subconscious mind and release those things that are otherwise really pesky.
Absolutely.
And persistent.
Absolutely. And so reading books, journaling, affirmations.
Mhm.
Affirmations work, but you have to really feel what you're saying. If you
Yeah.
don't believe in what you're saying in the moment, find another affirmation.
It's one of my favorite ways to use EFT because you can root out the negative stuff that's underlying and keeping you from actually believing the thing so that you can move into actually feeling it and embodying it instead of trying to like act as if and wonder why nothing is changing.
Absolutely. As human beings, whether you've been through trauma or not, we're masters of wearing masks.
Mhm.
We are masters of wearing masks and so afraid of being vulnerable. I'm still guilty of it.
Yeah, the masks have kept us safe in so many ways. So there's a certain amount of gratitude and thankfulness to be given to those masks and everything that they've allowed us to get through and how they've allowed us to get here. And then we can take the mask off and realize it's safe to move forward without it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I've worked with life coaches, business coaches, and, maybe once a year I'll take a different class or work with a coach. Uh, Not every year do I work with a coach, but I've gone, using the EFT tapping. Um, but I'll just do something that is positive and joyful that brings joy to me. And I'm a certified speaking coach and a TEDx coach, and I work with survivors on mentoring calls.
Amazing.
But I've just sent in applications to do modeling and acting. It's been
I love
another,
it.
yeah, it's been another dream of mine. So why not?
Absolutely. What was your experience like preparing to do TEDx?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I knew I wanted to be a professional speaker, so I started back in 2007 with Toastmasters. Have you heard of it?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I wanted to do public speaking to share my story. And then going on, um, I started learning about TED and TEDx. And I'm like, wow, I want to do that too. So I started studying and being a certified speaking coach and a fellow coach was a volunteer with the Cincinnati TEDx. And
You
they
were
were looking,
already a speaking coach before you did TEDx.
yes,
Okay, cool.
yes, I worked with business associates, financial planners, business professionals with their business presentations.
Cool.
And so they were having openings for volunteers at TEDx Cincinnati to work with, each of their speakers. And they would give you a speaker to work with to make sure they're getting their speech written and practicing because you have to practice.
Right.
You cannot get on a TED stage or TEDx and wing it. You have to memorize that speech as if you're just giving it and talking. You don't want it to sound canned. My point is, what better way to learn something than to do it?
Yeah.
Right. So I was learning how to do TEDx by becoming a volunteer TEDx coach. And I was learning what they did and the process of accepting applications and how they go through the process of picking their speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot out there. I have something on my website under speaking. If anybody's interested, they can check it out. But so I knew I wanted to do a TEDx talk. And another manifestation, Teresa, I knew I was going to give a TEDx talk.
Tell me
About a
more.
year or
Tell me more.
two, yes, before I did it. And I also knew that I would get a standing ovation. Not me. I don't like to say me. I like to say my message
Yeah.
because it was so powerful. My
So your message
message,
comes through you, so you can have some credit too.
a little bit. A little, I did the work. So but you don't see it on the video, and that's quite all right. I don't care. But 3 months before I gave the talk, I was writing every day. I'm so happy and grateful now that my TEDx talk is received a standing ovation. I'm so happy and grateful now that my TEDx talk is helping survivors around the world and helping them heal. I'm so happy and grateful now that my TEDx talk is being used by therapists and survivors to help with their training. Well, that was 3 months before I gave the TEDx talk. And I was writing and manifesting as though it already took place.
Yeah.
And the day I gave the talk, I was so sick. And had I not memorized that talk, it would have bombed. But I got a standing
What were you
ovation.
sick with when you gave it? Did you have like a
Oh,
cold?
just a bad cold, really bad cold, and my throat was going. 2-3 days before the talk, I go into a walk-in clinic. Please give me medication. But I manifested health and did it. I wouldn't speak for 3 days. I was memorizing in my thoughts, my speech.
You said you were having trouble with your voice.
Yes.
That
I
doesn't
was,
surprise me at all, since you were getting ready to speak about something so vulnerable, and that's total like throat chakra, like energy portal shutdown that like, maybe it's not safe to put this out here to such a large audience in such a way that could have such impact. I think that seems totally normal to me. And I'm
you
sure it
know
was
what?
also
You're
very
right.
terrifying.
It was very terrifying, but also I was very determined.
Yeah.
I was not going to allow, I could have been in a hospital bed and I was
Yeah.
still going to give that talk.
You had
I
enough
was
you had enough
determined.
consciousness and understanding at that point to understand the importance of following through anyway, even though it was uncomfortable, and even though your body, your subconscious, everything was trying to shut you down and keep you from doing it.
I'm a fighter. I am not a quitter. I was not going to let anything silence me again,
Yeah.
ever. I was determined. But I gave the talk, and Teresa, I have to tell you now, it's on YouTube, on the TED channel and TEDx channel. And I am receiving messages from male and female survivors from around the world: Australia, Japan, Europe, India, the UK. One young man said, I was suicidal. I was going to kill myself, and I watched your talk.
Makes it all
And
worthwhile, doesn't it?
oh my goodness, now he's working with the UK government to help other survivors get the help they need. Is that huge?
What a beautiful ripple effect.
So, yeah, something's been pushing me.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's why I've been pushed to do this. I didn't know how it was going to evolve, but we have to learn to listen to our intuition.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yes. That's one of the things I love helping women to strengthen, because we don't want to listen to our gut. We don't listen to our intuition. This self-trust that so many women are lacking are holding us back in huge ways. So
Absolutely. Men and women.
yes, everyone.
Well, here's something I'd like to share. Joining the National Speakers Association, there were a lot of people who held doctorates, or they were lawyers, or they were professors, and they were getting into the speaking profession. But there were a lot of people that did not have a college degree, but they were salespeople, and they had a great method for sales, and they wanted to speak. But there was a gentleman in the club, and he was really dealing with worthiness and self-esteem issues. And I found out, Teresa, he had had no trauma in his life, not like I had.
Well,
And he
comparatively,
was,
sure.
well, yeah. And he was still struggling with confidence and self-esteem and worthiness issues. And seeing that was a gift for me, because it made me realize I was more normal than I thought, that
Well,
I'm human, that it wasn't just the trauma that was affecting my self esteem, worthiness, and confidence. It was my humanness.
right. And there's no amount of therapy or tapping or understanding ourselves that can get us out of being human.
Yeah, it was my humanness. And that was a healing. That was a shift in perspective that really made me see that practice, do what you want, do it. It's like that saying, practice makes perfect. No, practice makes better.
Yeah.
And
Or more comfortable
or
or
more,
whatever else. But
yeah,
perfect's unattainable, no matter
yeah.
how we practice.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. And that's exhausting.
Ugh.
Don't you agree?
Yes, recovering perfectionist here, and I know the exhausting side of it, and I know the freeing side of not trying anymore to attain that kind of a standard. So much
Absolutely.
better on the other side. Much better.
So much better.
Oh my goodness. So what capacity do you work with people these days? How are you helping others today?
I am still a certified speaking coach and a TEDx coach, and I still do that. Excuse me. allergies in Florida.
Oh, I've been hitting the mute button off and on to cough here. My allergies have been awful too. So
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's real here, folks. But so I'm still a TEDx coach and a speaking coach, but I'm not actively networking for that part of the business. Now I'm following my passion as a surthriver. I've trademarked the word, and it is for survivors of child abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, that so that they can call themselves a surthriver. Merely surviving is great and thriving, but to have that word surthriver is to release the shame of their crimes and thrive in spite of it. So it's accepting our past and not being ashamed of telling our story. So I do work with survivors, and I have mentoring calls that they can book on my website. And it's for survivors that have gone through crisis counseling. I am not a certified medical therapist, but I am a leadership and mindset coach. And with the mentoring call, they get the book, the journal, my Thrive journal, when they book me for that.
Beautiful.
Yes. And I also have some online classes for that. And the really great thing, Teresa, I have 52 weeks of transformational affirmations with a weekly message that anyone can sign up for, and it's free. And every week you get a new message.
Where can we get that?
Go to renaromano.com, RENAROMANO.com, and get your free weekly. It's a new affirmation every week.
Lovely. That sounds awesome. I will make sure that your website is in the show notes. Are there any other good places for people to find you or connect with you that you'd like to share?
I am all over the place. Instagram, Rena Romano, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I also am a professional speaker. I do a lot of speaking for crisis centers for their fundraising. And I talk about my story and how their donations helped me get through therapy.
Wonderful. Well, I'm just so appreciative that you were here to share your story today. I know there's far too many people on this planet who have felt that they had to hide shameful or devastating secrets. And I really hope that your story gives them a new hope, that this, light shined on it in a new way so that they can really walk that path and see more of that light that you provide.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And the CDC and the Arc of Hope, they estimate there are over 42 million adults survivors of sexual abuse just in the United States alone. Over 42 million adults. So, and that's
Staggering.
not counting the children that are being abused. So we were born to live in joy.
Yeah.
And we can, no matter what we've gone through. I like to say there's always an upside.
And I believe it. Thank you for sharing your message with us today, Rena.
Thank you for the time and the opportunity. I appreciate you.
And thank you all for listening. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.